Welcome to Part 5 of the EIQ Tools demo. The next step in configuring an EIQ SuperAdapter is creating a virtual data source, or VDS, that pairs the data source with the index we created in the previous video. The VDS allows us to map the native data source columns to a standard data view. A VDS is created in the EIQ Server configuration tool. Once I connect to the server, I'll see any VDSs that I've already configured. Typically, we'll have one VDS per adapter and one adapter per EIQ server, but depending on things like data source size, volume, and query load, there can be multiple VDSs and many adapters served by the same EIQ server. Before we create a new VDS, let me show you some of the highlights of the configuration tool. In the Virtual Data Source tab, you can define a new VDS or you can edit or delete one. You can also use this tab to manage the standard data view using the Metadata Dictionary. When we open the Metadata Dictionary, you can see we have already created or imported metadata column names with their data types, data lengths, and descriptions defined. Multiple standard data views can coexist, and users can also add their own column names as part of the standard view, if one is not already defined in an existing model. We can import and export these attributes, edit any one of them, or change the attributes. Next up, the Superschema Mapping tab. This is where we map the columns to a standard data view against any data source specific column. The Data Sources tab allows us to add a new data source, which can be standard data sources like ODBC sources, or they could be another VDS served by a different EIQ server. We also have advanced settings that guide or change the behavior of the EIQ server. The Management tab allows you to manage the various aspects of the server, such as bringing the data sources online and offline, understanding what's happening with client sessions, managing users and roles, and setting security and access control parameters. There are quite a lot of management aspects covered under this tab. Now let's return to the EIQ Server Virtual Data Sources tab. It's time to create the VDS. Click on Define New to begin. Start by entering a name. We'll use police_VDS. By default, there's one table available called My Table. This is the table that any client who connects to the police VDS will see, and it includes all the columns that are currently available for mapping. When users query on My Table, they will only see the tables that have a superschema mapping. Now we're going to pair the EIQ index with the data source. In the drop-down menu, select the appropriate registered data source. Data sources must be registered with the EIQ server before they can be paired with an index. In the next field, use Browse to locate the DBD index file. Click OK to complete the pairing. The next step is to map the columns to a standard data view using the Superschema tab. Expand the Police VDS and select the data source node. This will display all the index columns on the right side. Right-click a column that needs to be mapped and select Edit. Then select an existing metadata column name from the drop-down menu or enter a new one. Then press OK when you're finished. We will repeat this step for the rest of the necessary columns. Once all of the columns have been mapped, the SuperAdapter has been successfully configured.